All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are breaking down a really complex and honestly pretty provocative theory. The source material for this analysis calls it a forensic unearthing of the hidden system, an invisible machine that it claims is shaping our world by extracting value. Our whole goal here is to unpack this theory piece by piece, using the evidence and the visuals that the source lays out for us. And this quote, this is pretty much our guiding light for the next few minutes. The entire point is to take this big abstract idea and make it real, to actually see the forces the source claims are working just under the surface of our everyday lives. Okay, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to define what this proxy protocol even is. Then we'll trace its history, see how it supposedly works today as this modern extraction machine, look at the real human and global costs, and then finally explore what the source calls a potential awakening. So, first things first, what in the world is the proxy protocol? Before we can start digging through the evidence, we've got to get a handle on the basic building blocks of the theory itself. Here's the core idea, straight from the source. The theory suggests there's a specific group of people, called proxies, who basically act as a buffer. Think of them as shock absorbers. Their job is to soak up all the friction, the complaints, the social heat, which keeps a much larger system stable. But, and this is the key, it's a system designed to pull value right past them. They never actually get to keep it. Now, to really get a grip on these arguments, you have to learn to speak the language the source uses. It's visual language. Whenever you see golden streams, that's extraction. Cracking bones, that's time being stolen. A fractured face represents consciousness. You'll also see tiny people next to massive systems to show power imbalances. And familiar scenes are made to look, well, a little creepy, to reveal what the source sees as a hidden horror. Keep these symbols in your head as we go. Okay, let's move on to section 2 and see how this theory builds its case. We're going to rewind the clock now and look at what the source presents as the very first clues in this investigation, where this whole system supposedly got its start. Whoa, okay, now this slide is where the argument gets really interesting, because it draws this direct line across more than 350 years. On the left, you've got a plantation in 1670. On the right, a city office in 2024. The source is arguing that the function is exactly the same. A proxy is in the middle, and that golden stream of value flows from the people doing the work or protesting through the proxy and ends up with the ownership class. And this quote just nails the interpretation of that visual. The tools might change, right? A whip becomes a permit. But the underlying technology, that social role, is identical. It's having authority, but you don't own anything. It's having power, but you don't get any equity. You just absorb all the pressure, but you never accumulate any of the value. So the theory continues that this protocol was smart. It didn't stay the same, it adapted. During Reconstruction, things like vagrancy laws were supposedly used as a kind of factory to create proxies inside the prison system. Then, as people moved north in the Great Migration, the function just moved with them, from the plantation to the city, where proxies were now needed to manage segregated neighborhoods. But that flow of value, still one way. Which brings us to today. And this is where the source argues the protocol got a major upgrade. It didn't just adapt, it optimized. It got leaner, meaner, more sophisticated, and, this is critical, a whole lot harder to actually see. And to make this really concrete, the source tells the story of a single family, over 3 generations, all centered around Atlanta's airport. Generation 1, the grandparents, they literally build the place. But what do they get? Time cards, not property deeds. Then their kids, Generation 2, work service jobs there, and they just rack up debt. And now, the grandkids, Generation 3, are working gig economy jobs, serving the very same infrastructure their family built but never, ever got to own. So here's the kicker, according to the source. It claims that even when political progress happened, the protocol just adjusted. It took the threat of newfound Black political power and absorbed it by creating more proxy jobs, jobs that keep the system running smoothly but prevent any real transfer of wealth. And the result? 3 generations of work and not a single deed to show for it. This gives us a great visual for how the source sees a modern city. On the surface, you see all the services, private security, charter schools, you name it. But way down deep, that's where the real value piles up, in LLCs and private equity firms. And what's holding it all together? That layer in the middle, the proxy layer. All the professionals whose job is to manage compliance and absorb every single complaint. And here we have what the theory calls the protocol's most powerful trick. It evolved. It went from open coercion, chains, whips, physical force, to a kind of manufactured consent. The modern proxy, the source claims, often thinks they've made it, that they're middle class, that they've beaten the system. But the theory poses a really uncomfortable question. Did you really escape? Or is it just that your job as a shock absorber now requires a college degree? So, what's the real cost of all this? In this section, we're going to look at what the source claims is the deep impact of this system, not just on our wallets, but on our bodies, on our minds, and yeah, on the entire world. This is a really tough concept. The theory says the extraction isn't just about money, it's temporal. The system isn't just after your labor for the day, it's actively harvesting your future, your health, your time on this earth. And this number, it just hits you like a ton of bricks. It represents that harvest of time, a 13-year gap in life expectancy. Now, the source doesn't see this as a tragedy or some unfortunate public health problem. It reframes it as an accounting optimization, which is a chilling way to say it's a calculated, efficient outcome of the system doing exactly what it's designed to do. The theory also takes the classic idea of double consciousness and gives it a twist. It argues it's not a bug, it's a feature, it's a design element of the protocol. By splitting a proxy's identity, making them loyal to both their community and to the system, it basically makes solidarity impossible. How can you organize resistance when you're fighting against yourself? And finally, the argument goes global. The source claims this isn't some uniquely American problem. It's a core piece of capitalist technology, a model that can be franchised, packaged up, and shipped anywhere in the world where value needs to be extracted, using the local population as the new buffer class. Okay, so if this system is everywhere and so powerful, is there any way out? In our last section, we're going to dive into the source's vision for how this whole protocol could actually be challenged and maybe, just maybe, dismantled. The source essentially lays out two possible futures, two different paths. On one side, you have the refusal. This is where the proxies, the stabilizers, just stop. They withdraw their consent, stop absorbing the pressure, and the old system starts to crack. On the other side is the reconstruction, actively building something new, like cooperatives or land trusts, where your labor turns directly into equity. And this right here is the core idea for how change could happen. According to this theory, you don't beat the system by fighting it head on. It collapses from the inside when its most important components, the proxies, simply step aside and refuse to do their job of absorbing pressure anymore. So it all boils down to awareness. The revolution here isn't one of pitchforks and torches. It's a revolution of consciousness. It all starts, the source says, when the buffers finally get a clear look at the books and make a collective choice to just stop balancing them. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative question, straight from the source material itself. If the whole system falls apart when the buffers simply refuse to absorb the pressure, what does that active refusal actually look like? Right here, right now, in our world today.